It's yet another edition of Tales from the Attitude Era. I am your host, Rob Pasbani, joined as always by the former head writer of WWE during this period, with which we review every episode that he head wrote.
I'm the
Tommy
eternal.
Blacha.
I'm the eternal head writer, like Kim Il Sung was the eternal president of North Korea. I don't know if
You're the Eye of Sauron of WWE. You're just always watching.
That too, sure.
We are on the road to Survivor Series, and last episode we reviewed the Raw prior to this one.
The incredible Raw.
An absolutely incredible Raw. I agree. And right now, this week, we are reviewing the Smackdown that aired originally on October 28th, 1999. On Peacock is listed as Season 1, Episode 10. October 28th, 1999. And the cliffhanger from the last show was that DX reunited as heels this time, as dastardly heels.
Mm-hmm.
And the going into the show, it's just like, well, what? How did that happen? I don't understand. We're in Springfield, Massachusetts, and there's no other way to start the show than for DX to come out.
Of course.
You hear the DX music again for the first time in a while. I guess you heard it at the end of Raw last night,
right?
On Monday. And so they came out to the excellent Rage Against the Machine Sound Alike, one of the most iconic themes in wrestling history, I think.
Break it down.
It's interesting, like WWE for their DX theme, instead of just copying Rage Against the Machine, they just sound like Eric Bischoff literally just licensed Jimi Hendrix music for the NWO themes.
Well, I bet I would speculate that had a lot to do with Hulk Hogan being like, I like that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, also, I interviewed Bischoff about this, actually. And he revealed to me that he got a very sweet licensing deal from the Hendrix family where he only paid, I believe, $100,000 for the license to get the music, which is pennies if you think about it.
And it was played like a million times. So,
exactly, especially for what they get out of it.
Well, I guess they wash each other's hands. I guess maybe that introduced it to a bunch of the kids. Who knows?
Yeah.
What I like about this opening segment is it did not overstay its welcome, so to speak. There was a little problem. It could be like, okay, let's not immediately like pass the mic around too much, and it was exciting and it was succinct.
Absolutely. So Triple H says, we're taking over. He had a line which made me laugh, but it's such a wrestling line. He goes, "We make all the rules and we break them." Like, well, why make a rule that you're just going to break? Don't make the
what?
rule. But...
Yeah, what? What do you? You're the kid in the audience saying that, and then just some other kid elbows you and holds his sign up. Well, shut up!
Shut up! He says there's a hostile takeover here. This feels a little more NWO coded than previous DX runs here, but also just because they're the heels. They're saying they're taking over the show. This is a show. And I want to say, I thought this was such a brilliant realignment because Triple H needs thugs. He needs, a posse to help him be like, he's never going to be winning clean when Triple H wins. So he needs people to come and interfere for him. So this was because obviously China, you're moving China away from him. Well, I forgot to mention this previously, but it's very interesting to me that how things move slowly, how slowly things move in WWF at this time. China is still coming out to the same theme song as Triple H when their characters are as far apart as could possibly be at this point.
Right. And it's funny you say that because it's almost like the contradiction of the Triple H line. Things move slowly because they're moving too fast. So that's exactly why, right? Because things are like, oh, right. And a lot of times it's like, should she get her own theme song? Oh, yeah, you're right. 2 weeks later. Do we not get her own? Oh, okay. Just like the pace is,
right.
Astonishing,
But no, this was good. X-Pac teased that there might be a new member tonight, which is an interesting hook for the show. Mm-hmm. And Billy Gunn challenges Stone Cold Steve Austin to a match.
And what you must remember here, I remember this now, Austin somehow I can't remember exactly when, but the decree was like Austin can't have much physicality. He was nursing an injury. So that was a whole thing of like, the kind of a horrifying sentence from Vince would be like, well, what are we going to do with Austin? And you're like, and I remember, I think it was Gewurz and I were like, oh, but this, that, again, like, you don't know what sticks, but somehow someone's like, oh, he should be, somehow it got somewhere. He should be like, maybe he could be like just lurking backstage and constantly like, ambushing everyone all the time. It's like, oh, okay, will that get old? But that's kind of a good way to be like, oh, they're always after him, but they don't know where he is. He's hiding in the rafters and pitching things like he's like the Phantom of the Opera. He's this and that. Well, what can we do? Whatever. And that kind of morphed into very quickly, oh, he's setting traps for them to the point where like, you think of all this elaborate shit, you can't pull that off. So that was the whole decree from one city to the next, Springfield, Massachusetts, from, Providence to Springfield, which is a short drive, but like talking about it in the car. Okay. And then in the morning, going to, Richie Posner, we need to set this up or that, so this was really on the fly. I remember. So
at this point, you have the main event for Survivor Series. Do you have an idea of what the finish of that match was going to be? Do you have an idea of what the the main event of the next pay-per-view, Armageddon, would be? Like how far? I know you said everything's by the seat of your pants, but How much planning is there?
Well, there's always things that you're moving towards, and sometimes you would know and sometimes you wouldn't, because sometimes that would be talked about on the side with the, Vince agents and whoever. So a lot of times you'd be like, we're going to the obvious at some point, but that it almost doesn't matter at this point whether you're working towards something or not, because it can change so quickly, Right. So you're never too tied in, but you are, the thing about it is The Rock and Austin were so hot. So there's always there being like, well, that's going to be the big thing. That's going to be the thing. How much can we delay that? Because you don't want to like burn it. You don't want to hot shot it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like, okay, so how can we, that was always the conundrum. How can we keep the heat and kind of maybe look to that, but avoid that? You know what I mean? And they're always like little things added, like, even if The Rock and Austin are teaming, like, on Raw, like, so you're kind of like staying away from that. So for this one, I can't specifically remember. And also once something comes along that's like, well, Austin's hurt. He's nursing an injury. He can't, do much. Like that just makes it immediately like,
all plans are out the window. Yeah.
All plans are out the window. We don't know what's possible and what's not. So at the same time, even though you're working towards something, part of your job, it's almost like being a war planner in the military. What are the contingency plans? You're still working on, you're foolish to not always work on contingency plans, even if you're working towards something. Well, there could be this or what could be that. And that's kind of, so all things are naturally at play, if that makes sense. So,
yeah. There was somebody in the crowd dressed as a ref with a sign that said, "Got hydro?" Made me nostalgic for the days of hydroponic marijuana.
Oh, got hydro.
Doesn't exist anymore.
It's such new times. Like, oh, is it some kind of hydration thing, which we're all obsessed with now? Must hydrate.
Eventually shortened to just dro. Yeah. Got dro, bro. Yeah.
People used to drink water back in the day. Idiots.
So Triple H calls out Vince McMahon and he tells him, we run the show now. And there's some very prophetic lines that Triple H tells Vince McMahon, knowing what we know today in 2024. It's almost like, I wonder if this conversation happened, where he tells Vince, quote, "Your services are no longer needed. Listen close. Take a hike because you're finished."
Believe me, none of that rung true then whatsoever. Not even a million miles away.
Of course.
Oh, it's a good line, but right. Yeah. It only took a couple decades after.
Yeah. Vince tells DX that they can suck it to a big pop. Mm-hmm. And that ends the segment. Then we have the JVC Kaboom of the Week. I love the product integrations here, how they work it into the replays or the recaps for something that happened on the previous show. and it's always the something of the week.
Yeah,
like there was I believe a Navy sponsorship later in the show, and it was the rescue of the week.
Yeah, and Lugs had one last week. The Lugs,
the boot of the week.
Boot of the week. I still have some Lugs back here from, like I said, the Lugs RV would show up with just massive amounts of huge Lugs, and people stop by and get some.
We're going to do a Lugs giveaway eventually.
Yeah.
The kaboom of the week was Shane off the cage. So we got another few recaps of Shane off the cage, completely overshadowing Test. But we do see the Test spot later on in the show. Then we see Test and Stephanie walking backstage, hand in hand, lovey-dovey. Patterson and Briscoe greet them. And so happy to see Stephanie, smile on my face seeing Patterson and Briscoe, who are now faces.
Always. Yeah.
Then we have Edge and Christian against the re-debuting Too Cool. Edge and Christian seem so much more over than even like 3 weeks ago, just from post No Mercy and how well they've been treated on the show. I mentioned this previously, but Scott Too Hot Taylor, as he's currently still known, does the worm here, and it was almost like a heat move. Like it was a move to get heat here because it was so silly. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing their rise and seeing how they get over
the worm. The craziest move ever that I can't imagine there was anything ever where someone had to sell for longer than the worm. Even Jimmy Snuka even climbed to the top of the cage faster than what it took the worm. Incredible.
The Hollies were doing commentary, so at some point, Crash Holly interferes in the match, hits Edge with the scale to prove that he's a heavyweight, and there was
a great like sunset flip power bomb.
Oh yes, to the outside.
That was dear Lord, that was
painful looking. Yeah,
yeah.
This was a fun. I mean, all the guys here could work. So this was a fun match while it lasted. Keeps the story going. Of course, the Hardys come out again to do the save, get them over his faces.
And this was really like one of those matches. Like, okay, you're setting it up, and then after they got with the agents or whatever, there's just like monster bumps in this match. Yeah, like it was really like. Because you could argue on the bad side, this is a little convoluted, this, that, the other, but like, holy, you know what I mean? This is when people were like, oh my goodness, the bumps are, they felt like, well, we got to do something, and it was huge.
We talked about it last week, and everyone's fighting for a spot on the show. There's a lot of competition, a lot of big names. So when you're giving them match time, they're going to want to do something that the crowd remembers, so they get cheered.
True. It is true.
Backstage, Jim Ross is interviewing Big Show, and I'm missing Jim Ross already, man. I want him on commentary. Yeah. So not that Michael Cole is bad here. He doesn't have the 30 years experience JR has calling at this moment. But he interviews Big Show. Big Show says he has to leave because he's so angry. He doesn't want to do something illegal. He doesn't want to kill somebody, which I love this idea that like, he's like, I'm so pissed off. I'm so dangerous. I should just remove myself from the situation. Yeah.
Well, we talk about that. Remember, like anger goes like anger, unbelievable, psychotic, and then it gets really scary. Then calm. You know what I mean? It's just like now. Yeah, I'm gonna take a life.
Now we cut backstage. We see a camera focused on a dressing room J, I believe, and who opens the door but a very sweaty and exhausted Mark Henry, who lets the two hoes he just finished with out and invites two fresh new hoes for another round. And he looks like he's tired. Lawler mentions these are two of the skankiest hoes he's ever seen. I'm surprised skankiest got through the network censors. And the Peacock. You could say skankiest on Peacock, but you can't say the R word.
Yeah.
Then Chris Jericho comes out, continuing his feud. Of course, last week he was in a mixed tag with a cross-dressing Stevie Richards.
Yeah, a double mixed tag.
And Jericho talks about how he's met how China's awful IC champion, but then he turns his ire to Stevie and says he's very upset with Stevie for losing the match for them, and he challenges Stevie Richards to a match. All of a sudden, The music hits, and again, it's the same music as Triple H. So I was confused for half a second until the Titantron showed that it's China, so it's supposed to be China's entrance, and everyone's like, "Oh, China's going to come out to attack him," and it's Stevie Richards dressed as China.
Yeah.
Looks great, like great visual gag.
Yeah.
The gag of him wearing the chaps and the thong, and then you seeing his man Speedo tan line with the thong on top of it, hilarious, so funny.
Yep. Straight Gaga. I know. Thank God he had that China outfit ready to go.
I was wondering about that because it's like, did China lend him one of her outfits? Because she was wearing something very similar, and it's not like they're the same size or anything.
I'm gonna be like JR to Lawler. Stop it. No, just or Monsoon. Will you stop?
It's a quick match. Stevie's getting his ass kicked until China, the actual China, comes out, distracts Chris Jericho. Stevie gets the quick roll up victory, and after the match, Stevie tries to thank China for helping him win, but of course China's like, "How dare you? How dare you try to insult me?" And she kicks his ass. And then Jericho attacks him after.
Yeah. Another case of like where how do you get people with potentially real heat involved in Gaga? Gaga backfires, and Stevie Richards takes the brunt of everything, and then the other two can come out like pissed off, and you know what I mean? And like the match, he lost the match. It was like a squash match till like a screw job finish. You get screwed, but he fucking pissed off and he hands it to Stevie, and China looks good. She interfered and she kicked Stevie's ass. So it's like Stevie Richards is doing the good job, the service. At that point you're doing, it's beyond doing the job. It's just being a sacrifice.
Yeah, exactly.
Crucified. But but you're out there, and it's kind of like, and it set up a thing with him like, oh, I'll always impersonate people and be, cannon fodder, but he can work and take bumps. And
in its own way, you're getting Richards over to the crowd because nobody I mean, other than obviously ECW fans, or I guess he was in WCW before this, but still, it's like he's not that popular of a guy, but people are remembering who this guy is. He's this silly cross-dresser.
Sure. Well, and I always say, Tate, when you say, if you can lose and get over losing, that's great. Just run with that, because then there's nowhere to go but up. It's a problem if you have to win to get over, no matter how, somehow if you're like, wow, so.
Then we see the first appearance from The Rock, and he arrives, walks out of his Cadillac, is greeted by Road Dogg, shades of Tully Blanchard here, egging on The Rock. The Rock takes the bait, and suddenly DX attacks The Rock. Billy Gunn does a crazy leap onto The Rock, onto the front of the car. It looked very painful. And they do a 80s Horseman style attack. This is the Horseman attack in Dusty Rhodes. This was a pivotal segment, I think, in establishing what this version of DX is. They're not here to have fun. They're not here to spray paint. They are here to kick ass and to take over and to be the top guys on the show. And they kidnap The Rock, throw him in the trunk of his own car, steal the car, and drive off.
Oh my God, it's like you're running the production meeting. I can't believe it. Introducing this segment. And speaking of shades of, I'm pretty sure this is where it's from, but at that time I picked up some sunglasses off the ground that were broken, and I just moved. I still have them. I think these are.
This is literally The Rock sunglasses from this fight.
Yes.
Looks great.
Yeah.
Are they just like prop glasses, or are they a brand name? Like,
no,
what does it say on the side?
No, how dare you?
Oh, I'm sorry.
They're Persals. Yeah.
They look fancy.
Oh, the real deal. I'm telling you, this is the era where fuck it. Just the real deal.
Yeah. Who needs those? Oh, they're broken. Leave them on the floor.
Yeah. Prop sunglasses.
No, but I love this. And look, The Rock.
Let's give it to our millionth subscriber.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, I like that.
Yeah.
We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. If we're not there yet
okay,
by the time
1,000.
this airs, maybe maybe we could help. And
Yeah,
please
yeah.
like and subscribe. That means a lot. It helps us go far.
If you want a chance to win these.
Yeah, and The Rock did good business here. The Rock could have been like, I don't want to be the sacrificial lamb. I don't want to like, because he kind of, you could see an argument made that The Rock looks weak here, even though 4 people attacked him. But like, but he did the business here, and all this did was make everybody look stronger, especially.
Well,
with
and
the
I would
closing
argue
segment.
4 people doesn't make you look weak, and it's always like that. But and the problem, then you have your, that conundrum is solved next week and the week after. Oh, so you got to have your comeuppance. That's the stuff you got to keep track of instead of this moment.
Right.
It's not like, you know what I mean? Your heat's gone and you look weak as if in 3 weeks you never really did shit.
So you put down a marker. Rock has to get his heat back, like somehow. Like,
and with these guys, and with any good guy like that, they're gonna let you know. I mean, and The Rock wouldn't.
Right.
He'd be like, "What?"
He's
the
not
fuck?
going to let that pass. He's like, "Look,
Exactly.
I did the business. Now they got it."
Exactly.
That's good to know. That's good. Yeah, because that was running through my head like, oh, this is great. Like it was an awesome segment, and I love how you establish DX as the modern horseman here. Like I said, and like I mentioned last week, it's such a stark contrast to how the WCW guys are trying to do the NWO revivals that nobody cares about. Like this is a new thing. It's not just rehashing the stuff they did a few years ago. This is new, just with the same brand.
Right. And perfunctorily, it was just good to get him out of the way too. There's sometimes there's just some of that, like, okay, Austin's hurt, the Raw would be this, and let's just get,
And then they tease that Steve Austin is the next one they're going to attack. Like it's one off their checklist, and Austin is next. We have British Bulldog against D'Lo Brown for the European Championship. And bad news for D'Lo here. He's not in a program. Bulldog's in a big program. The posse's here. They keep interfering. D'Lo tries to go to the top. The posse trips him. Bulldog with a huge superplex off the top rope for the victory. Which is like for Bulldog fans, they know he keeps that superplex in his repertoire.
Yeah, and it just also seemed, look, the problem sometimes with the European Championship is a weird afterthought, just to be like, oh, someone else has a belt, but it just seemed to get it on someone closer to Europe. You know what I mean? That always just seemed like why, you know what I mean? Like why does D'Lo Brown have it if there wasn't a high profile thing of him being in a program with someone from Europe, or it's the European, you know what I mean? It's like, not like the Intercontinental. Like, what does that mean?
This is just a case of sometimes in wrestling, like wrestling promoters don't understand what words mean. Like words are just words. I like, it's not like this person represents Europe. It's just we need another title. And the way I imagine they came up with the European Championship is that WCW had the United States Championship, and so they're like, well, we'll have a European Championship.
Yeah, I guess. But it also seemed to be like, well,
that's out of my ass.
I can't remember. Yeah, you could. Who was the first? Who was the first?
Bulldog was the first one. There was they had Raw in Germany one year, and they did like a one-night tournament.
See, that did make sense.
And Bulldog beat Owen Hart in the tournament.
Right, so that makes sense. It was defended in Europe or whatever. There was some, then it went goofy. I always remember Barry Windham had the Western States Heritage Championship.
Right.
That was like, what? Where's that from? I never heard of that one.
I was always fascinated by the United States Tag Team titles. Like, what? There's a secondary tag title?
Yeah, that's right. And I like when they go away. What?
Yeah.
Where did they go?
Or I guess I believe what they had was they had a unification match with the regular tag team titles.
Well, when I was a kid in Detroit, they had the Sheik, the original Sheik, always had the NWA United States Championship. Mm-hmm. But you wouldn't see it anywhere else in any of the other, because there was a TV champion. You just wouldn't. But I think it just only stayed, back when it was so regional, you thought like, ooh, this is a belt. But it was always a cool belt that had a map of America in the middle. Of United States. Always liked that belt.
Yeah.
That'll be another episode. We'll rank the belts.
Belt talk. Oh, I like that. Yeah. We do a tier list.
Yeah. Underrated Western States Heritage Championship. Pretty good.
Backstage, X-Pac reassures Kane that despite his realignment with DX, this doesn't change anything in their friendship.
Right.
He also explains that the reason he ran out was because Tori told him to. And
well, how did he put it? The chick was going to get involved. I think he said something.
Something like that. And I could have let her out.
Yeah.
Then we see Kane and X-Pac versus the Dudleys. And Michael Cole posits, could Kane be the new member of DX that X-Pac was hinting at? Which I thought was great exposition. A great question to ask as the lead announcer, because makes sense. And it's like, oh, that would be cool. But also, you don't want Kane in DX because Kane is a face.
All right.
X-Pac not involved in the match at all until finally tagged in. Low blows Kane, completely turns on him. Dudleys get the win. They get the hell out of the ring. Kane quickly regroups and tries to attack X-Pac, but once again, the Horsemen are here.
Yeah.
When you attack one, you attack them all.
Yeah,
and all of DX runs out and get the heat on Kane. This is great heat. You got to build up the heat on this new faction, and I love it.
Yeah, the purge, just like Stalin. It's a purge.
Yeah. And X-Pac says it's over. Kane is a piece of crap, and there won't be a new member today. He lied.
Yeah. All good. Yeah. There was talk. It's like, is that disappointing? Like, I don't know. I think it's, it's fine. It's DX. They can do it. Like, we're going to do this. Fuck you. We lied. They're
right.
Those kind of smart asses. So it doesn't, it makes sense.
It did feel like a bit of a bait and switch to me, but what makes it not feel like a bait and switch was I don't think Michael Cole was hyping up that there's a new DX member coming at all. The only time he mentioned it was at the beginning of this match. So I completely forgot about the new DX member until this.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't oversell it, at least.
Right. And just the other good thing is just that we always talk about, someone's going to look weak, but Kane could never, he's so weird, and what does he think? And is he going to have a new love interest or what? He's just so huge and monstrously over that you're like, ooh, you kind of feel like you just fucking woke up a bear. He just kind of like the typical rules didn't apply to him because he's just so fucking, physically imposing, and the look is so incredible. You're always like, oh, you don't feel like, oh, now he looks weak. And
also X-Pac looks relatively so much smaller that it's you're going to start with this guy? Like you're starting grabbing this guy of all people?
That's what you're left with. Like, I think you guys are kind of insane, Yeah. I mean, it was kind of like, I get it. It's bold, but you're making enemies, but that's, that's good.
So then we have the Hardys against Viscera and Mark Henry. We have the continuation of this human trafficking storyline.
Right.
And I guess the bit is that the Godfather gets good-looking hoes, and Mark Henry, Viscera gets, as Lawler put it, skanky hoes.
Well, this is the line somewhere. The problem is Viscera isn't a pimp.
Oh, yeah. Well, so I just assumed he inherited the Godfather's harem, but I guess the hoes, they have employment, so they can quit if they want. So assuming
Rob, you got a lot to learn about human trafficking and especially when it comes to pro wrestling. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Are you saying a little bit of this storyline gets a little sticky and convoluted? Perhaps.
There was one of the hoes had trouble getting into the ring, which very much made Lawler laugh. And I guess you could say she wasn't skinny, but it's not like she was fat.
Yeah, it's just rude on rude.
Yeah, but they were being so rude to her. And I like that the Hardys tried to work their match, but they just couldn't do any of their high spots with Big Vis because he's 500 pounds or whatever. By the way, they were introduced as a combined 850 pounds. I thought you could have worked that weight. You should have done a full 1,000 for Mark Henry.
Well, I think legitimately Mark Henry was just over 4, and legitimately Viscera was like legitimately like 490.
Yeah.
Well, especially those guys like, oh, I'm 508 and then I just had a match and now I'm 492. I lost water weight. Fucking unbelievable. So,
are people getting weighed backstage? Is this
no, not anymore. Once the tax thing went, people I think were more when there was still like you had to have the state athletic commissions sanction things before Vince made the thing. So they are not. But I think they were, because they would have to be quite literally pass sort of like a medicals thing, almost like a boxer going in or whatever. We got to look at you and do all that stuff. And that was a big reason for when Vince said the predetermined outcomes, the thing that really was like,
I see.
Now it's legitimate. But a big part is that we don't deal with the pain in the ass of getting actual licenses and having it sanctioned by every state's athletic commission and all that kind of business. So it was like streamlined. So
also, I just want to say, like, I'm so upset that this team didn't last, because this could have been a really fun super heavyweight team of Viscera and Mark Henry. Obviously, the story calls for it to go in a different direction, but I always love when two big dudes team up. Like it's such a fun gimmick.
I think, frankly, there was a little thing too about Viscera's ability to consistently work a lot too. You know what I mean? His size. I mean, he could do some things that were incredible, but like he couldn't work like Mark Henry or whatever. I think that came into play. I'm not exactly sure, but there's some issues there potentially.
And so Mark Henry gets tagged in the ring, immediately distracted by Terry, who is managing the Hardys. And the announcers make sure to mention that Terry is a much higher class of a woman than the hose that Viscera is employing.
Right.
And because of this distraction, the Hardys are able to take advantage, trip Mark Henry, make him take a bump. Jeff Hardy goes to the top rope, senton bomb, 1, 2, 3, match is over. Mark Henry loses the match for his team. Big Vis, not happy about this at all. The arrangement is done. Clearly, Mark Henry's still too distracted by women to focus on wrestling. He's been getting laid all day. Still hungry, still has the thirst, fiending for Terry, and that cost him the match.
And what's great about this from your booking perspective is you keep Mark Henry's storyline alive. You keep him over, and he can just lose and look weak. He looks weak in the respect that, like, oh, he's misunderstood. He's fucked up. He's got this sex addiction. You know what I mean? But you're going to check in with him next week. And it, like I said, there's nothing better to be like, you're fucked up. You're losing. You're all fucked up. You got a lot of airtime and you're over. Fuck yeah. Only ways to go is up. Where arguably they're going to fucking put Viscera's more done, even though he comes out on top, it isn't always just like, oh, Viscera has all this heat. Not really. His is going to dissipate more. The storyline's going to stay with Mark Henry. Like, what's with him now? You know what I mean? So, and also like a good match, one of those like, fuck it, 3 minutes, make something out of it. And they did, so.
Yeah. I thought it was a good piece of business, as you've been saying.
Yeah, good piece of business.
We now move to Al Snow taking on the Big Boss Man. And for those of you that are newer viewers, WWE is very kind to provide a flashback to all the dastardly deeds that Big Boss Man has been up to these last few months. How is this guy not in jail?
Yeah, I know.
A few months ago, he made Al Snow eat his own dog.
Yeah. Pepper.
Oh, no. And then it showed all the crappy things he's been doing in the big show.
And in fact, there was so many despicable things. I think JR even borrowed his own "What kind of a man" preface.
Oh, yeah.
What kind of a man cooks another man's chihuahua and feeds it to him? Yeah. That was whether this happened or not, a nod to the legend that Mr. Fuji did that with someone's dog. Now, that's a rumor. I'm not going to say it's true, obviously. I have no idea of knowing it, but I can confirm that it was a rumor that a lot of people passed on. So
I've heard that Mr. Fuji was a cruel ribber. So that fits the narrative that I've heard.
Yes.
And so they have a match. It's a brief hardcore match. Again, this is just a reason to keep the Big Show angle going. So Bossman, Albert is out with Bossman. Albert distracts the ref. Bossman grabs the hardcore title, cheats to win. And Al Snow grabs the mic and says, what a surprise. He had to cheat. He calls him out on the cheating. And he said, like, he didn't realize this was a hardcore match because if it was, Al Snow loves to do hardcore. And he challenges Bossman to a hardcore match outside of the arena.
It was one of those, like, the match was kind of like, but then I like this. They're like, oh, Al Snow, it kept it alive, and he did good for him. Like, oh, he's so weird, and hardcore, right. And it kind of like, so generally you think like if that match would have just ended or whatever, like, but then it just kind of like breathed life into like, it was just like a shitty 2-on-1 match, and they kind of called out like, well, that sucked. How about this? So. Making chicken salad out of chicken shit is what I'm saying.
So the whole show, DX is looking for Steve Austin. He's nowhere to be found. And all of a sudden now, we see that the Road Dogg has his leg caught in a bear trap.
Which I think was more of a bobcat trap.
Okay.
Because I do remember it was one of these things where there's an early morning meeting. This was day of stuff. Having breakfast at wherever, the Holiday Inn in Springfield, I believe. And then so when this stuff would be, how about, Austin's going to set these traps. Okay, we'll get a net. We'll get a big car. We'll get one of those gimmicks where, like in the cartoons, like the lasso makes him go up in the air, they do. But it's like, we can do it with a camera cut maybe then. Let's get like a bear trap. One of them gets their leg cut. Then like, well, how big is a bear trap? There isn't really bear traps. And like, it's one of those gimmicks. So then I was the one to be like, okay, early, let me get on the cell phone and get over to Richie Posner. We're going to need this. We're going to need a big cargo net. We need a lot of rope. We're going to need pulleys. We're going to need okay. This is probably like 8:30 in the morning, 9. The production meeting's around 10. So it's like just, peeling off from the breakfast table to go order a bunch of shit. And then you might come back and be like, no, it's all changed. Like, fuck it. That's how things rolled. But so I remember Richie, he got some big cartoonish, like, fake bear trap with teeth this big, and you're like, that ain't gonna work. And like his leg would just come off. And then so it was like, no, we need one just like almost, like a whatever, bobcat, fox, one of those ones like that was eventually used. And like, okay, fuck. So sending some local person out to like go quick. Just getting on the phones back then. It wasn't no internet. Like, how do I find one of these fucking things in Springfield, Mass? Someone's got to have someone. Does anyone, so it's like, does you know anyone who's a fucking trapper? So it's just like that kind of mayhem and like, fuck, hope it comes back. And then finally, somehow, someone knew someone was borrowed. And I remember giving it back. And then I remember them like furiously filing it so it wouldn't be sharp when it goes around his leg, just one of those things.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about, because it like, you don't really, like, it's done for comedy, but that's a pretty violent scene. Like, you've never seen a wrestler stabbed, as far as I can think of on the show. Like as part of the show, Road Dogg was practically stabbed in the leg here with this bear trap, it was like in kayfabe, of course.
Yeah, it was crazy. But because I kind of thought like of that whole day, just thinking, that fucking bear trap, which wasn't even a bear trap. But you know what I mean? It's just like the mayhem that I went through to just like, and Richie Posner, like, holy shit, just really, how's that coming along? Hold on. And it, but it worked.
So I do like that Austin is the smart baby face, that he saw what was going on with The Rock. He wouldn't let DX get the better of him, and he can't beat him 4-on-1. So the only way to do it is to siphon him off one by one.
Yep.
And the first one is the Road Dogg.
Yep.
And he's out. Then we go back. We're still backstage. Now we're outside the arena, actually. And Bossman and Albert are walking around looking for Al Snow, ready for this hardcore match.
Yep.
And Bossman has the idea, let's go wait in our car so that we can ambush him, even though Al Snow left to the outside before we did. But okay, no, I'll roll with this. I don't want to be that smart, Mark. But let's wait in the car. And then I have to say, like, the shot was perfect because just as they get in the car, the camera goes around the car. So you see the other side. And all of a sudden you see a forklift that turns on.
Yeah.
And Michael Cole is like, wait a minute, that's the Big Show. And the Big Show slams the forklift into the car, basically cornering Bossman and Albert to be trapped in this car. Then Big Show starts jumping up and down on the car. I could only imagine how scary that must have been for Albert and Big Bossman in the car, feeling that. And then he even smashes the a sunroof, which it's not like Bossman and Albert have blankets across. Like, that could have been a cut there.
Well, what was funny about that? First, a couple of things. Can't remember the cameraman's name, but like the camera guys were always so like this era the way it was starting. Like, you know, we did usually do stuff inside in the ring, but they're like, we're like movie cinematographers. We're like action movie cinematographers. Right, they really appreciated it, and they were so game to do anything, all these shots. And often it was like, it turned out, like you said, like really cinematic. But part of this came about, I remember Big Show at some point somewhere saying like, you know, I can destroy a car with my bare hands pretty good. Something like that, either as a comment or something. You know, so it kind of as a seed in there, like, yeah, if I ever have a thing for a Big Show to, you know, like, okay, here's a good thing. Do regret not having like a camera inside, you know, that would have been like a little.
Oh, in the car.
Yeah. But when that thing ended, fucking, what was so funny is see the viciousness of Ray Traylor, Big Boss Man. When he got out of that car, he's just all like wide eyed. He's like, man, I'm telling you, that was terrifying. Just being in there in the you know, just like, it's like, it was like a monster was attacking, just the windows blowing out. And he's just like, yeah, he just fucking destroyed a limo. And again, it speaks to the ratings, the numbers going up, and just also like, destroy a car.
Didn't just destroy a car. He then dumped a dumpster. Which is a pretty massive stunt. Like, were they? I'm guessing there were camera cuts, so I'm guessing they got out of the car before that happened, right?
Yes,
You don't want to, you don't want to actually kill them, but that's like, there's a lot of stunts on the show. There's there's all the Austin stuff. Yeah, you know, there's a lot of extracurricular activities for Richie Posner. You're making sure that guy's working.
Oh yeah, and there's other people, and often there's like the shout out to all the people I don't even know sometimes, or like I don't know who the weirdo was that called the weirdo that somehow had someone who lived half hour away who had a fucking bobcat trap and who drove on the freeway extra speed to get back, and then the furious filing down and. The weirdo who was called up. What about my bobcat? It's ruined. Well, how much do you want for it? It's $500. You know, all that shit that happens, like, you know, fucking all the time. Oh,
no, it was very, very cool. And a great segment. And finally, Big Show gets some semblance of revenge after weeks and weeks of torture from the boss man.
Yeah. And it's good because it's not physical. I mean, it's, you know what I mean?
They haven't touched yet. They haven't like wrestled.
Yeah. It's like, holy smokes. Yeah. Good stuff.
Then we have Val Venis against Mankind. And which it's so crazy. Like, these guys just had a match on pay-per-view a few weeks ago, and it feels like it was a million years ago.
Yeah.
They're so beyond this. And Lawler takes the time here to make a bunch of porn name puns like Genital Hospital and On Golden Blonde.
Yeah.
Mankind has the match won. He tries to reach into his crotch to get Sacco. Sacco's not there. Al Snow runs out, though, double duty, hands a sock, and Foley eventually beats Val Venis. Slowly but surely ending Val Venis's push into the upper mid-card.
Yeah, that was only, you know, for all the stuff you have to do, there's always sometimes like a little bitter pill, and you kind of feel bad, like, ooh, like Val Venis maybe got the short end of the stick here a little, because he was fucking awesome in this, you know what I mean? He can work like mad, and, you know, and he brought it, so it was a little shame that he's just this modular piece of this that gets taken out as Mankind's off in, 40 other directions with other stuff. So
Yeah, exactly. And I just think at this point, the porn gimmick just held him back. It was like a one-note joke.
Yeah.
That, it didn't allow people to take him seriously.
I don't even remember. Did he come out? He doesn't come out in his towel anymore or anything like.
Right. No, he doesn't.
So, yeah. So, it could have just went to the wayside. It's just that his run for whatever, just kind of like, just so much going on and so many people. Like, it's like, sometimes it wasn't always a decision to like, let's cool him off now. It's just like, fuck, we got 40 moving parts here and there. Some stuff just kind of goes to the wayside, unfortunately, put it that way.
And I mean, hey, you can't push everybody. Someone has to take a loss.
Yeah.
And after this, we see Billy Gunn hung upside down and Austin taunting him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm loving this. This feels like very Bugs Bunny. Very Looney Tunes.
That was certainly invoked.
Yeah, and then after the commercial break, DX is in their locker room. Everyone's recuperating. Everyone's hurt. Everyone's upset. X-Pac gets a call on his cell phone. It is a flip phone. And Austin asks him, do you listen to the radio? Do you listen to Casey Kasem? You know what he says? Keep your feet on the ground and reach for the stars. And at that point, X-Pac looks up and boom! The roof caves in on him. He gets injured too. DX is incredulous. How dare this, Austin? Austin!
Yeah, it really, He set up all these traps.
And no main event match, but there is a main event segment. DX comes out, calls out Austin, and Austin comes out and roasts all of them. Says, I was looking for a bear, but instead I found a jackass. He said X-Pac is the only member of DX that he likes because it kind of sounds like Six-Pac.
Yeah, pretty good.
And then it just ends in a schmaz. Kane comes out and then The Rock returns. I almost thought that The Rock wasn't even in Springfield, that you taped all this stuff the night before so you could have the night off.
Right.
But then he shows up here. And a big schmaz to end the show. And you're just basically configuring the battlefields here. You're setting up the rivalries, and on one side you have DX, and on the other you have Austin, Rock, and now Kane. And I'm sure Foley will be back in the mix as well.
And you got to remember too, this SmackDown is not that old yet. So it's not a big deal. Like, there's always
still season one, as Peacock tells us.
There's all these tropes of it, like, oh, you got to get in, you got to get my shit in, get in. It's not a problem for The Rock to be like, because he's in the storyline, then he comes in the end. I'm sure he's fine to be like, oh, I'm not, there's enough to go around. Today. Yeah. Yeah. And also there's enough to go around. It's like, holy fuck, there's 5 original hours of programming a week. You get in fucking 3.5 of them or whatever, it's fine. And then as far as like yesterday, this was even crazier in terms of just the subtleties of, fuck, these guys are in a net, right? And they got to be...
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even mention that. They call it Austin. And Austin nets all of them. He tricks all of them and has a net.
Because he's coming down and it's a good scene, even though people see this fucking net or whatever, but...
Yeah.
The live audience. But he's coming down and like, how can he come down and why is he so smug? He's going to face 4 fucking guys and then the fucking net. Pushing the envelope of preposterous, but it worked. But these fucking guys were so good to be like, I'm stuck in a net. And then Triple H was kind of like not in the net, so he did get up. So much shit naturally happened. They're so good. And again, like I said from yesterday, they stay out of each other's way. Everyone peels off perfectly. Fucking X-Pac is up there during all this madness in this net. He takes his thing. He takes the other thing. Then Billy Gunn rolls in. Everyone like rolls in again, like impeccable fucking timing and gets all their shit. And all the time, fucking Road Dogg's extra limp selling his leg with the fucking cut on it. That's
right.
And the net. And, just like, it's a mess, but it's not. It's again, when you look at it, it's like, it's weird to say. It's like, look at that segment again and be like, man, those guys are good. They all are fucking so good. This could have been just the drizzling shits so easily, that bad, like, oh, I don't see you. You're too close to me, but I got to sell and be awkwardly like not ready. And then, oh, what are you here for? Oh, your spot. Wait, this, what do? I stand here weirdly or, like None of that happened. It just like they just were like seamless. Super impressed with everyone.
They're all the pros. There's a reason they're all on top.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt.
Yeah. So another, and also, you know, I would have never known that Austin, you know, he's kind of being like written down from the show because of his injury. Like it was hidden so well within the storyline. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Great, and everything, you know, and especially sometimes like, man, you have such a Raw that was so crazy. And then, you know, there's not necessarily a natural letdown, but like it's human nature. Like the next day that's to tape, there is kind of a weird, I would say like a letdown, but this different vibe, but you know, and you can't just be like so, you know, foot on the accelerator that much. But every match served its purpose and everything. Like nothing was like clunky or why that. You know, like I said, like I wish Val Venis could have had a extension to a storyline or something in there, but you know, that's, you know, neither here nor there. It wasn't like a mistake, you know. So everything was really good again, real good.
Yeah, absolutely. Like right now, and it's only getting better. Like this is like we're still on the rise here.
Yeah.
I feel like things only slow down maybe around maybe like February, March, like around WrestleMania is when I feel like that was like the first time I started questioning booking decisions from WWE. Mainly it was like the Foley retirement and then bringing him back as Mick Foley, like Linda McMahon's Mick Foley. I'm sure we'll get to that, and there were reasons for it.
Sure. Well, always a big reason to remember, and I hate to hit this over the head every time, is the machine that you're feeding of 5 hours a week, and why things are like, why did you do that? We fucking had to do something. You know, sometimes we're like, you know, remember 4 or 5 people in a room. What are we going to do? You know, it's bound to go off the rails or bring that back. That works, you know, or whatever. But, you know, I'm always defending shit just because he's just trying to shine that light on it.
I appreciate the like my perspective is purely from the outside, so I'm just saying it as someone who experienced it as a fan.
Well, you know, I always say this, maybe I said it before, but it's like the unfairness of things sometimes is like you always criticize a football coach or offensive coordinator of a team for plays that were called or whatever, but you never say this to the coach: why did you have him fumble in the fourth quarter? That was terrible. When it's sometimes in wrestling, like, he just fumbled. You know, it just sucked. Because it wasn't the booking. That's, you know, there's all kinds of stuff like that. You get like, what was your Coach Belichick? What was your reasoning for having him fumble late like that? It seems weird to turn the ball over. What? You know, so a flawed analogy, or you know, but
no, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, but there's plenty more fun to happen.
There certainly is.
Continue on this ride with us.
Yes,
we're very excited to keep going, and thank you as always for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. Follow us on social media. Maybe if you're our 1,000th subscriber on YouTube, you can get one of this fancy one-of-a-kind pair of rock sunglasses.
Yeah, involved in a storyline missing eyepiece per Saul's.
Literally one of a kind, folks. All right. Until next time, we'll see you on Tales from the Attitude Era.